It's one thing to just complain, right? It's one thing to complain. But how will anyone ever know what your issue is if you don't raise your voice, right? If you don't feel like your voice is loud enough, put it in when you file complaints, you got to be able to have your evidence. You have to be able to spell out what it is, because if you do have a fair housing complaint, here is the key thing. You only have 1 year to file your claim. Okay. And then after that, that's it. You can't go back and say, well, this happened to me 5 years ago. There's a lot that's happened to people 5 years ago, right? COVID was a real thing, right? And it actually exacerbated a lot. But again, go a whole another hour for that. You need to make sure that if you see or if you're feeling that you're treated differently, document it and report it.
Greetings, Scouts, to another episode of the Local Lookout. Good evening, Rodney.
Hey, Bobby, how's it going today, man?
Everything's great as we celebrate Black History Month. Everything is good, so let the celebration begin, brother.
Absolutely, man. I'm so glad February is here, Bobby, because 2025, that was the longest decade I ever been through. And January was the longest year that I ever been through, January 2026. So I'm just glad February 2026 is here and Black History Month is upon us, brother. But other than that, Bobby, I'm doing good, man. You know, hey, I'm keeping my head above water, scratching and surviving, brother, is what I try to do out here in these streets. But great, Bobby. Look, this is our second episode in your third season for the Local Lookout. So I'm looking very forward to an outstanding episode today. For your Civics 101 lesson, you're going to be talking about the First Amendment. Everybody, a lot of people that follow the Local Lookout knows, what happened with Don Lemon. So I think that's very appropriate that the First Amendment is something that you want to talk about. And also these FBI raids right there in Fulton County, raiding the Board of Elections and stuff. So looking forward to you talking about those things. But before you get to that, we have a very special guest on today. We have Miss Amy McCoy. And Amy is a fair housing advocate, and she's also a real estate broker. She's mainly going to talk about a lot of fair housing stuff and all of that. But remember, at the end of the day, this woman knows how to sell homes as well. So with that, Bobby, I want to bring out and welcome Miss Amy McCoy. Amy, how's it going, sister?
Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, both Bobby and Rodney. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to come here on your platform and talk about something that is critical to the way America runs, first off. And I love the fact that you're going to be talking about the First Amendment, because fair housing is a civil rights issue.
That's right.
As much as it is a systems issue. So thank you to be a part of this segment. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. And before you get started, speaking of, the fair housing being a civil rights issue, it is actually Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act. So it is something that we want for our listeners in this segment that you're doing on fair housing to understand that it is there, at least right now, it is their right for fair housing. It is not something that some kind of entitlement or anything like that. It is actually your right according to Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act. So with that, Amy, look, let's get started real quick and let's jump right into fair housing, sister. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, fair housing itself, most people will think, well, it's only about housing, but it's not just about the housing. Former Congressman Johnny Isakson, who has now since passed, was a real estate broker, and he has expressed multiple times that real estate should be factored in all conversations because it is a part of every vertical in the way that America is running. It determines not just about housing, but it talks about your equal access, your treatments, the outcomes of opportunities, because you can have two people that can be going through the exact same issue, like experience that on paper, they can be receiving the same things, but because of bias, itself being inside the system, they have a completely different experience. Fair housing impacts not just on selling of a house or purchasing of a house, but on rentals. It impacts how lending to the borrower is, or how the appraisals are then distinguished, or even with your insurance in your community, or even for zoning. And most importantly, code enforcement. So there
Yes.
are so many things that can impact on fair housing. And so it's one of the reasons why, as an advocate, I am very upfront that fair housing is essential for in any community to thrive. So it's why I take it upon myself to make sure that I keep that at the forefront in all conversations, even when it's time to go and speak up at city council meetings or commissioner meetings. Has to be a part of the conversation in all parts.
Absolutely.
I have a quick
Yeah,
question.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Just to,
Bobby is
yeah,
you're an appraiser, so
yes.
I really expect for Amy to get some real good conversation pieces from you. Go ahead, brother.
I love
Yeah,
it.
just one thing, right offhand is
Okay.
when we talk about fair housing, a lot of people forget about those who have disabilities
Yep.
and their ability to buy a home, or what
Yeah.
needs to be included for those with disabilities. Can you share a little bit about that?
So I'm so glad that you brought even up from an ADA point of view, right? So there is a part of the Fair Housing Act. You have disabilities that's all part of that. Um, and one of the things that I know I have gone multiple times to planning and zoning, or even sitting in housing meetings with commissioners, that I have to overemphasize the importance of making sure that we're building for someone who's aging in place. Yes, that's one. But also, one thing that we can never count on is walking out our front door and, God forbid, being hit by a truck. And now we're in a situation where we are, not able to just move around easily walking, right? There's a friend of mine who's a real estate agent who, while showing homes, was hit and then became a quadriplegic. So the challenges now of someone as a single father having to now, with taking care of his children, now have to find a new way of being able to sell properties, right? Because now that changed his income on a lot of things. But then the accessibility of when you are showing up to the property, are you actually able to show the property yourself, or for that borrower that's looking? I have several clients who may be wheelchair bound, and you don't have enough inventory in the system that are amenable for them to be able to access the property. It's one thing to build a ranch plan, right? A one level plan where there's no steps inside the home, but builders forget you still got to get in the home. And so they will build the floor plan up, meaning that someone now has to pay for a ramp. Um, and one of the things that on a federal level that I have rose concerns with, when you have a new construction build and a builder decides, and we're just going to continue with the theme of if you're in a wheelchair, correct?
Okay.
So if I'm going into the restroom and I need to use the restroom, and all the toilets have where the handle is closest to the wall, if I am in my chair, do I have access to flush? And we may not think, well, that's kind of trivial. Well, it's the person's dignity that's being jeopardized, right? Instead of making it a point that all the toilets should actually have the button in the middle, right? So that way it's a little bit easier. Having just being able to even get into the restroom. Most homes are built to where you can't pull a chair in, right? And so that's a challenge, or even somebody with a walker. But not just to that, let's say someone has a hearing disability. And so we talk about smoke detectors. If you're in a rental unit, are the smoke detectors, do they have lights? Is there something that's signaling so that you can actually see that there is a fire, right? Or that something is needing your attention, right? We think with the shortage of housing, oh, well, I'll take the first available, but we may not be thinking or consciously thinking about the person who does need that unit because it is ADA accessible. One part about that I also want to extend on, because yes, we're talking about home ownership, or, if you're renting an apartment, but let's just talk about if you're going to a hotel And again, using the disability, right? If you need a chair assistance to be able to move you into the bed, most beds in hotels now have kick plates. So that is impeding you to actually be able to get into the bed, right? So those are the things that we need to be conscious of. It's more than just having a, a parking spot, at the front door. Sadly enough, some people take the parking spot, may not be needing it, but I don't want to judge anybody that's using it. I just ask you to use it, um, you know, appropriately, because there are those people who do need it, especially when they're in a van, a service van that where they're able to drive themselves. They still have to be able to park. And so I have friends that are wheelchair bound, and unfortunately I've watched them have to park at the very furthest of the parking lot because someone has parked in the van parking spot. And so those are challenges that they are obviously having to endure. But one thing that fair housing challenges us on is to have to show empathy, right? We need to be conscious of what our neighbor is going through to know, hey, we can do better. And these may be just, a law, but here's the guide on how we can do better. And it challenges us to think through that.
Great.
I don't want to
Amy,
interrupt you, Rodney.
no, go ahead, Bobby. You can finish out.
Yeah, one more question
Yes,
for
sir.
me.
Yes, sir. Please.
The issue of affordable housing
Yeah.
as it pertains to the Fair Housing Act. Can you expound a little bit on that?
So I'm glad you talked about affordable housing. And most people, when they hear affordable housing, they're thinking about the housing choice voucher, or affectionately known in the past as Section 8,
Yeah.
right? And I want to dispel that. Affordable housing, fair housing is not just about affordable housing in terms of just low to moderate income. It takes into impact of our workforce housing, right? We have to think about our teachers. We have to think about our nurses, that are maybe just getting in, or hey, we have seniors who now have had to move to, they're just living off a Social Security check, right? So we think it's just about the income that comes in, but you have to look at the area median income. And we talk about affordable housing. It's not just about rentals. It's about, hey, is it attainable for me to be able to buy in this community? Is there an access point, or, first time buyers, most of them are not walking out the gate being able to purchase a $500,000 home.
Right.
That's just not, that's not as common as people think. Most people, you're going to be looking in the 200s, if you're able to even get that much, right? It just depends on how much your income is, because that dictates your purchase power, right? But it's not just about the house price itself. It's the consequences of purchasing that property in that community because of other things, as I described earlier. What is the insurance cost going to look like? What are the taxes going on in that community? How many versions of taxes? You may have your county, you may have your city, but then there's also this tax that people may not be aware of. It's called HOAs, right? Your homeowners insurance. And that is a tax itself. And unfortunately, here in the state of Georgia, there is no regulating mechanisms in place to be able to, if you have a challenge with it, you are going to be having a challenge, because Georgia, unfortunately, stripped a lot of the oversight. And so there are bills that are on the table right now in the House and Senate that are looking for oversight measures to be put in place. I'm currently working on a policy paper that, because I believe there should be federal protections put in place when it comes to homeowners association dues. And so in Georgia, originally, I learned that there was just 2 states that had a super lien capability. And what super liens are is that if I put a lien against your property, I have an opportunity to take first priority over your mortgage. And in actuality, throughout my investigation, is that there are 22 states that have super lien mechanisms. And that is very concerning, because through the data that I was finding, you will see that in the state of Georgia, there is predominantly more African Americans that live in HOAs, where HOAs were initially set up to restrict people of color from being able to be in those communities. But through my data, I was able to find that actually in the state of Georgia, about 24% of more Black people live in HOAs. Now, here's the concern I have with that. Because again, if there's no oversight mechanisms and you have counties like Clayton County, and thankfully they are making a change to it, but they put policy in that said every community that was built had to have an HOA. Well, if you've looked at history from the financial crisis, you will see that majority of the communities that went under due to water bills not being paid or some infrastructure failures or things like that happened to be in minority communities.
Yep.
So, and if there is no oversight, it's no longer a mechanism used for exclusion and what it now changes the conversation that it's predatory inclusion versus an exclusion. So you have to kind of look at all the different variables that, yes, it's not so much an exclusionary mechanism now, but when you look at how the policing powers and how we're taxing people out of a community, we think just because of school taxes or the county taxes or the city taxes, when we see those millage rates rising, they're not even thinking about what's happening to those residents that live in HOAs. And that's the bigger challenge, because without state regulations, it falls on those counties and municipal leaders, and they don't have the bandwidth to be able to help confront those issues. That's our biggest challenge right now in the state of Georgia. Yeah, blow your mind, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. That's very interesting. Rodney, I don't want to stop
Yeah,
you
no,
from
I
asking
was
questions.
I was still thinking about the stuff she was saying, man, with the HOAs.
Yeah.
As far as you said there's 20, Amy. You said there's 22 states
22 states.
that has super
That have a
liens,
Super
super
lean.
lien clause that
capabilities.
will
Yeah.
allow them to be able to take over from your in first priority over your mortgage.
Right. And I can't remember whether you said whether Georgia was one of those states or not.
Georgia it's not a full super lien. However, there are
Okay.
certain circumstances that would allow them. So, but
Okay.
we're a non-judicial foreclosure state. That is what scares me most about with Georgia being in this situation, right? Because it's one thing that if you have a judicial foreclosure, that means you have an opportunity to go into court and be able to plead your case as to why you shouldn't be foreclosed on. The challenge with it is because we're a non-judicial foreclosure, all they have to do is be able to file in whatever instrument that they put their notices out, right? But what we hear from a lot of residents and a lot of constituents around the state of Georgia is people haven't even been receiving the notice that they have a fine, period. And so if you're not even being notified that, hey, you have a violation, you need to cure it, these charges can continue to keep building up. For instance, a few months ago, I had received a letter, all because I didn't turn in a form to say, no, I'm not renting my house. Here's my number. Here's my name. Here's my email. That's all that this letter said. I got charged $25 a day for not turning in this form. Now, you put a phone call into me, you sent me an email, all of those mechanisms to be able to finally tell me I had a debt, because going into that month, I had a credit. If I'm not looking at my account and I see the next month later, all of a sudden I have $1,125 worth of fees on my account, it should just instantly be wiped out if I can say, hey, this is stupid, this is asinine, what are we doing here? Like, to be able to dispute it. Some people don't know how to dispute, and they will just allow it to keep going on. If you have an HOA that's non-respondent, most of the times they'll just forward it on to an attorney, because people don't have conflict resolution experience. Let's put it that way. Some people get on these boards and they're just excited that they've got a title and this power. And so, I have seen and experience and have testified in front of the General Assembly multiple years about this situation. I had one lady who owned a townhome for 2 years, and her HOA bill ended up at $84,000. And they said, well, she was renting her house. And I wind up covering the $5,000 for the attorney to prove that no, she wasn't renting her house. They even sent a fine of the picture of my vehicle at the property from when I first got to the property to actually inspect the property. So she was being issued a fine for somebody pulling up to her property. And that's why I said sometimes you get a behavior, you get some bad actors into this. Not all HOAs are bad, but when you don't have oversight, it puts a bad rap. And if you're in a condo community, this now impacts how FHA or VA borrowers even have access to get into that neighborhood. So what is the consequences of that? Now, because you don't have owner occupants, you're stuck, potentially stuck with investors. And what happens with investors? They're not going to pay retail price. They want the bottom dollar that you can offer. And now you're having to give up your hard-earned equity that you've put into that property. And that's the biggest challenge when it comes to fair housing and why we have to be good stewards and paying attention to this.
Okay, Amy, I have one more question on HOA. I don't want to make it a whole thing about HOA, but at the same time, I would like for you, if you know this, is I know that there are several different reasons as to why people don't why that there's not a whole lot of regulation or oversight on HOAs. But could you let this audience know what you believe, because you are now a resident expert on this stuff, what you believe is the number one reason why in this state of Georgia that there's not a whole lot of oversight or regulation on HOAs?
So there, America is a capitalist country, right? And it was built on chattel slavery. So I could take this as far back as possible. And that's one of the beautiful things about doing this temporary fair housing exhibit, because that was the whole point of setting that up, is to take it as far back for you to understand why it's important for this law, but then where we need to move it forward, right? In that context, remind me the question again.
Yeah. So what I'm wanting to know is, what I know this audience want to know is, why isn't there a lot of regulation and oversight? We know that there are many reasons, but what do you think that number one reason, the abbreviated version? Because like I said, we might have to get you on the whole, the 1 hour show to talk about in depth about fair housing, because it is a very, but just briefly, why do you think I know there's many other reasons, but the number one reason that there is just hardly any oversight or regulation on HOAs?
So when you look at the ethics, right, in the state of Georgia, they stripped all of ethics in the state of Georgia because they were so hard on to go after Stacey Abrams, right? So even when I filed complaints about elected officials in regards to conflict of interest or anything of that sort, the oversight was stripped. So we have they voted to strip all of the oversight powers. And so the only way that you're really fighting this is if there's like a campaign finance or whatever. This has to be taken and fought from who's bad actors and dereliction of duty. But the challenge with it is, and this is why it has become so hard for residents to be able to fight this, is because the state of Georgia treats this as a civil issue. And that's one of the reasons why I'm writing the policy paper, because I know it's more than just a civil issue. If just like with the lady that couldn't afford the $84,000 bill, and do you know how much she ended up paying once I got through with that? Zero.
Good.
Zero. But if she didn't have that $5,000, or if I didn't have the $5,000, what would have happened? Because in the state of Georgia, if you owe more than $2,000, they can easily get a lien on your property. And right now, that mechanism of building that up, let's just say your HOA was only $300. You were only $300 behind. But then you got a fine because you had a basketball goal in your driveway, right? Or you had too many cars parked, or I don't know, whatever it could be. But you got these fines. And then all of a sudden the attorney fees got jacked onto it, and that could be $600, right? Well, all of a sudden that $300 debt is now $2,000.
Right.
And now they can file a lien. And then you got to go through all the fighting and all that other stuff. And so people just say, just pay it. Don't fight them, because any attorney you hire is going to right off the bat charge you $5,000. And if you don't have $2,000, how are you going to have $5,000 to fight it? Right. And so we need to really think through that, because it's already law. Why are we having to go hire an attorney? Like, it's really incumbent upon that elected official to do their job. So the Secretary of State is supposed to handle these. If you're having those issues, file with the Attorney General's office. It just comes down to if they're going to enforce, if they're going to work that file or not. How many cases are in play? And so we need regulation in the state of Georgia to oversight to see this through.
Yeah, thanks for that. And so it kind of harkens back a little bit. And Bobby, I'm gonna let you get in before we move into which I know Amy is very passionate about this as well, which is getting people to get involved in this. But before we move on into that, Bobby, I'll let you get in. But Amy, one more thing is that you talked about how I think it was like 24%, I believe, that African Americans are into these communities with HOAs, and so it would harken to say, well, why aren't the legislators under the gold dome when it's their constituents who are getting ripped off by these by these associations, right?
So in honesty,
Hmm.
there are a lot of legislators every single year bringing this up, like Senator Donzella James. She's been heading this up.
Yeah.
And,
Yes, she's been done. Yeah, she's been talking about it a while.
a long
Senator
while.
James. Yes,
And
a
a
long
lot of
while.
people have kind of felt like, oh man, it ain't doing nothing. She's not going to do. Let me tell you, it takes persistence and dedication in order to see this through. This year, you have Matt Brass, Senator Matt Brass, who is also the chair of the he's the chair of the Rules Committee. And so what is this Republican going to want to do? He's going to want to have a big win, right? So if we don't get it through this year, we're going to have a big problem come next year, right? It is more incumbent for any type of oversight for HOA needs to happen this year. It needs to happen during this session. And so I know that there are several senators and House reps that are actually going to be galvanizing on February 10th at the Gold Dome, and talking wholeheartedly about what's happening with HOAs. So I think it's from 9 until 11 in the morning on February 10th down at the Gold Dome, why it's important for people to get there, stand up. They have to hear from you. I've testified a few times. There's been a lot in the news. Many of us have made sure that this has stayed in the attention, in the news, because people are losing their homes. People are being intimidated just walking outside their house. Like, again, when you think old Jim Crow days, like look, sometimes we've been doing it to ourselves. If you're reading between the lines,
Right.
we do it to ourselves because, again, we don't recognize the implications that happen as a result to having that type of power or whatever. And I don't want to get on here and blame anyone other than this is why it's important to be in black and white and rules put in place, and then there be enforcement of those rules.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, Bobby, before we close out the fair housing, Bobby, close it out.
Hey,
with
I
your
just,
question.
Amy, I'm sorry, I didn't even know if you're writing, but Amy, I want to thank you for coming on. We can do a whole show with you,
Yeah.
and I certainly want to bring you back, and we can expound on this even more. But I do want to thank you for coming out and sharing what you know. That's an important issue. I live in a HOA community, so it's something I'm definitely ears perked up listening to. And there's a lot of us, as you mentioned, the percentage that actually live in HOA communities. So what you're doing is extremely important, and I'm thanking you for bringing that to this show and to the forefront of the importance of it right now as it stands. And a lot of times people don't realize in our state legislature, we always just think on the national level, what what goes on nationally instead of focusing on what's happening locally, and the importance of these type of issues that have to be brought to the table, and brought to some sort of resolution for its residents.
We
It's one
definitely.
reason
Yeah.
why yesterday I spoke up at the commissioners meeting. I advocated to uh, for them to finally bring in a chief housing officer and create a housing department, because now you're actually putting in the mechanisms in place so that there can be a localized enforcement agency. Not everything can be handled on the national level. The fight that
Right.
I've put forth in regards to the city of Villa Rica and with its illegal eminent domain situation that targeted 53 Black households, like taking that, getting all the way up to the Department of Justice, and then because of a new administration, and we see where that's going, unfortunately, we're having to fight that a totally different way now. But it's understanding the cards that are on the table. And if you know how poker's played,
Yeah.
you know what you got to throw out, what you got to, you just got to know how the game is played in order to find solutions to make it real equitable for the entire community. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
And Amy, before we talk about this wonderful exhibit, you've hit on it a little bit, but let people know how they can really get involved into making sure that fair housing is actually a thing, like for real, for real.
It's one thing to just complain, right? It's one thing to complain. But how will anyone ever know what your issue is if you don't raise your voice, right? If you don't feel like your voice is loud enough, put it in a letter, right? If you are not sure what the experience is, start taking the video of the issue. Take pictures of the issue, right? Pictures 1,000 words, right? Then you describe what you're seeing, because one of the things when you file complaints, you got to be able to have your evidence. You have to be able to spell out what it is, because if you do have a fair housing complaint, here is the key thing. You only have 1 year to file your claim. Okay. And then after that, that's it. You can't go back and say, well, this happened to me 5 years ago. There's a lot that's happened to people 5 years ago, right? COVID was a real thing, right? And it actually exacerbated a lot. So, but again, go a whole another hour for that. You need to make sure that if you see or if you're feeling that you're treated differently, document it and report it. If you report it to your council member or your commissioner is one thing, but if you feel like you are discriminated against, okay, because of your race, your color, your familial status. There was once upon a time women couldn't even open a bank account,
Yep.
much alone own property. And if you had kids, it was a major issue. So let me add this part. Right now, there is a lot of communities that are 55 and up. And what I hear is rhetoric that no kids are allowed. That's a lie. Okay. There is the HOPA Act. Okay. And so with that, 80% of that community has to have, where someone lives in that household, has to be over the age of 55. But what we've learned over these past couple of decades is a lot of grandparents are having to now take care of their grandchildren. Okay. And so that if you live in that community, and all of a sudden that happens and someone is telling you have to get out or they're making life hard, no, you have a fair housing issue and you need to make sure that you report that. Okay, because there are certain things, certain bonds that could be tied to something, certain financial things that they're getting from the federal government, and now they could be at risk for those type of violations. We don't want to reward that behavior.
Great.
Sorry, that was a long question, a long answer.
No. It's very thorough.
We
Very
need that.
thorough.
We need that information because there may
We
be
have,
those listening out there that have
yeah,
someone in
absolutely.
one of those communities and they need to know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think I want to say something like 35 or 40% of this audience is, I think 35% is over 55. So there you go, and some of them live in those type of communities. So it was very valuable information. Now, Amy, we are going to move into your wonderful upcoming exhibit. Let the people know about your exhibit coming up.
So I was sitting in the yard at Kennesaw State University in between classes. And I was just so annoyed through an experience that I was dealing with within Villa Rica. And I said, you know what? In order to get people engaged, they need to understand what their rights are. And so I wrote a book called Sheltered in Justice: From Jim Crow to Martial Law and the Struggle for Fair Housing. That book came out at the beginning of 2025. And I was talking with a colleague at NAR, and he was like, Amy, was this a book for academics? And I was like, no, it's for anybody. He was like, word of advice, sometimes you got to put things in crayons for folks, right? And I'm like, okay, that's a different perspective. I didn't realize, but it's true. People need to know, but people learn differently, right? So this temporary fair housing exhibit that I've got coming to Douglas County, in part, thank you to the West Georgia Board of Realtors, who I used to be a president of. But again, real estate is what we do, and fair housing is a part of it. And so they have joined in the initiative to create the Keys to Equity. It's an immersive learning experience that we have put together as a temporary fair housing exhibit. I tried to get it at the DC Museum. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. But luckily, we were able to get a partnership, which we are still paying for, with the city of Douglasville to be able to put this exhibit at the Innovation Hub at Hunters Park, right? It's really nice. We've got a whole room dedicated. It'll be their grand opening on March 10th. And it'll run through April 25th. It is going to be open to the public. Monday through Friday, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we're open for those that need private tours, like our schools, after our school care, or say senior center wants to come in and you want to hear specifically during those times. We wanted to create that space for them. So that's from 10 to 2. And then from 2 to 6, it's open to the entire public, right? To be able to come in. It's going to talk to you whether you're at a second grade level, or if you're 12th grade level, or if you're a scholar. We want to break it down so that you, as the youth, understand who are community leaders and what is a community leader, what is actual fair and what's unfair, right? Because, I could take this all the way, in which it is a part. Slavery does happen to be a part of this conversation, but it does not dive completely into it. We're starting this from 1860, back when they were giving, which was the Homestead Act, when they were gifting land away, right? Unless you were of color, right?
That's right.
So it's starting all the way back there. It's going to take you through the journey all the way up to the Fair Housing Act, but it's not just about housing, because the fair housing intersects again with education. It impacts your health care. So in terms of if you're in a food desert, or your financial institutions, because again, the taxes that are derivative from owning a home or in a rental complex, that is what pays for that type of infrastructure. So it's very important to learn what this is, because you as a individual need to understand how to advocate for yourself. And when you are educated to know how to advocate for yourself, you know how to block out the noise and what is truly, just to call it what it is, right? So you'll be able to identify that. And so that's what my hope, my goal for this too, is that a student can actually come in and learn. Again, even if you're at second grade, you're going to have this as a different experience. You'll be in the same room, but it'll come differently for you at a second grade level than you from a 12th grade level. But we didn't miss anything in between that. And so if you were to go to westgeorgiaboard.org/fair housing, you can actually sign up if you want to be a docent person, right? Someone who helps lead the tours. We are looking for volunteers to be able to help in that. If you say, hey, I'm a company or I'm a private individual and I want to help sponsor this, because I had a goal to be able to raise enough funds so that we can offer scholarships to those students who want to help be a part of this exhibit, right? And if we don't meet that goal, that's okay. Still got to work through it, right? And so we have been raising funds. There's a mechanism for that. If you want to just be a sponsor and helping getting your name brand out, if you have like as a resource center, right? If you're food pantry, these are the resources we want to be able to communicate to the community. We will have pamphlets, brochures, things like that. So when people come through, they know, hey, I walked away with resources, not only just knowing my right, but understanding resources around Douglas County.
Absolutely. And, it's Black History Month. We're a couple of days into it. And when you talked about giving land away, this country was giving land away. Dr. King talked a lot
Right.
about land grants.
Mm-hmm.
He talked a lot about that. So I want people to just Google Dr. King or Martin Luther King land grants. He talks a lot about that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. So but anyway, yes, a lot of information, a lot of good information, but we cannot let you get out of here without people knowing how they can get in contact with you. Because look, people think that, we get paid doing this stuff. You do a lot of work, just like Bobby and I. We don't get paid for this stuff. There's a lot of work that we do, but guess what? You have bills. You have to get paid as well. So please let the people know how they can reach you about the exhibit or about anything or about information, just wanting to talk with you, but also about how they can reach out to you as a real estate agent as well.
Again, I appreciate that, Rodney. That you definitely spoke my love language. How can you pour into me as much as I can pour out to everybody else?
Absolutely.
Most importantly, that's how I do keep a roof over my head, is being able to sell property, right? Help someone buy and sell. I run a property management company as well. So if anyone's needing someone for asset management, that's what I do. I help even in the commercial space. So Amy McCoy, 404-933-8842 is my direct cell phone number. Yes, I definitely have time to talk, but about business.
Yeah.
You can reach me on Instagram at Amy ATL Homes, and always on Facebook as well. But I'm out in the community. If you
Yeah.
see me, you have questions, you have concerns, feel free to always, you could tap me on my shoulder, and we can always schedule a time so that way I can be concentrated on what your needs are and how I can be the best solution for what your needs are actually needing. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you, Amy. And Bobby will tell you I have a bad habit of just claiming folks to the Black Man's Roundtable when they come on. So guess what? I'm claiming you as our resident housing expert.
Yes.
So when we need
I agree.
information and we need to,
That means a
Bobby,
lot.
I'll tag somebody in a minute. So Amy, you have been tagged, but no, you really, I've seen you in person. I've seen you talk. I've seen you give lectures to folks, and it's obvious that you're very passionate about what you do. You're very passionate about everybody, but you're especially very passionate about our community. This is the Black Man's Roundtable, so I'm just keeping it real. You're very passionate about about our community, because our community is the one who needs all of these acts and laws for a reason, and those things like the back of your hands. And so we just appreciate you, sister. So look, we hope you have the best exhibit. I'll be out there, support you in any kind of way that we can. And like Bobby said, we have to have you back on here to talk about housing for the entire hour.
Thank you. Just to add this one tidbit. During the financial crisis, I bought this little house off Campbellton Road.
Okay.
And when I purchased it, my mom was like, Amy, can you really live in this house? This whole house was the size of your master bedroom that I used to have off Cascade Road. And the blessing in disguise from that is my neighbor. I bought the former nanny's quarters to Congressman John Lewis. And so in having conversations with him, and this is where my passion grows from, because the change that I want to see, as he would tell me, you have to be a part of governing for that. And so that's why I make it a point to be a policy influencer. Who knows when I'll ever have a day in office. It's not like I'm running for that now, but what I will say is I will do what I can to making sure that rights are being furthered for all communities, first off. But from when I look at a mirror, I know what is necessary and which house is burning right now. And so I'm there to help put the fire out. But all communities, again, fair housing is essential for all communities to thrive. And we can all live in a community together.
So, Amy, you don't think screaming about it on social media is going to get this stuff, something happening?
I think it helps, but we really have to focus on policy. And so, again, that's what I focus so hard on, is making sure that policy is impacted, because then you have something to actually point it to. Otherwise, yeah, it just becomes a complaining social circle, right? So you have to have policy to follow it if you're going to ask and demand your rights.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Amy. As my frat brother John Lewis would say, sister, keep up the good trouble out there. And I'm glad you got a
Absolutely.
chance to know him. Okay. And I'm
Yes.
glad you're keeping up the good trouble. And I know you actually keep up the good trouble. I've seen it in live and in person. So anyway, thanks, Amy. We'll see you soon.
We appreciate you, Amy.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Some good stuff there. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, man, some good information. And I think that the listeners of the Local Lookout really going to benefit from this episode. So, Bobby, we got coming up next, man, your Civics 101 lesson. Like I said earlier, you're going to be talking about the First Amendment, in particular about Don Lemon's arrest. Take it away, brother.
All right. Thank you. So first of all, we're going to get right into it. For those that don't know what the First Amendment basically covers, it prohibits Congress from prohibiting basically freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and the freedom and the right to petition. So those are basically the 5 things that are covered under the First Amendment. As it pertains to what recently happened with Don Lemon, let's read something that Miss Ida B. Wells,
Yes,
a
sir.
quote from her that she is known for, where she famously said, "The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them." If you don't have a free press, how are you going to expose the wrongs? How are you going to expose what's actually happening? So for those who may not have been paying attention, on January 18th, there were protesters that entered the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, where a ICE official is actually a pastor there. So Don Lemon, who's a former CNN co-host, and Georgia Fort, who is a local journalist, they entered the church basically to cover the demonstration as it was happening. So they have now been arrested, and federal charges have been brought against them by this administration. And basically, there's no justification for covering a news story and presenting it as is actually happening. That's the whole hypocrisy about it, of what's happening. So we know what this administration is doing by directly targeting them, and what they're attempting to do is stifle the press from being able to do their job and free speech. Now, it's just interesting how they always have something that contradicts their actions, that constantly keep coming up. So, for example, if this is going to be your, if you're gonna, stick the flag in the ground as your stake on an issue like this, coming from this administration, well, then my question would be, if you're talking about an interruption at the church, just recently, a couple weeks ago, at Pastor Jamal Bryant's church, New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, here in Lithonia, Georgia, there was a white pastor who came in and caused a disruption at that church. Where's the federal investigation there? Why hasn't he been arrested? And Bishop Bryant brought this up. I heard him on his podcast. Pastor Bryant, I'm sorry, I called him Bishop, but Pastor Bryant actually brought this up on his podcast about, okay, if this is what y'all want to investigate, or this is your angle now, well, why haven't you made any arrests or done anything regarding this man who came in and interrupted their church service? There's so many contradictions. We all know the reason why they targeted those particular individuals as an attempt to stifle them, as a form of intimidation to the press. This is what they're trying to do. He's trying to now nationalize elections. Okay. These type of topics that are very serious, very, very serious in nature, they have to be covered freely by the press. Because if not, then all we get is what the government wants to tell you, instead of you using your brain to take information and decide for yourself. Again, another distraction from the Epstein files. Okay. As you know, more was released last week. More information is coming out implicating some just absolutely awful things I won't repeat out
Right.
here that have allegedly been done. More names that have come out, and interestingly, I think today the Clintons had announced that they'll testify, but they want to do it publicly. They don't want to do it behind you know behind camera. They want to do it on camera. So if that's the game, that's the angle they play. That's some Nino Brown type of stuff, by the way. If I go
Mm-hmm.
down, everybody going, it's some other folks going down
Mm-hmm.
with me. But if you have nothing to hide, if you want to state your case, do it publicly so that we can see it. So there's so many different contradictions that are going on regarding specifically this with Mr. Lemon as well as with Mrs. Ford regarding this arrest and the cooped up charges that they are facing right now. I personally think that the actions of the federal government now are going to make them millionaires. Personally, I think by the time this is all said and done. But let's remember something in terms of uh, what the Republican Party allegedly stands for. Where's all the so-called conservatives now about the overreach of the federal government? What happened to all the talk about states' rights, and them being able to handle these type of matters? Now suddenly you got the feds going in and arresting journalists for covering a story. You don't hear you. Where are they? Where are those advocates at? The ones that supposedly are conservative. There's so much of a contradiction between allegedly that part of the Republican Party and compared to what MAGA is doing right now. They don't equate. It doesn't add up. And so those are the things that really, really annoy me as it pertains to this administration and how things are handled, how things are approached. It's like every day. It's like every day something is going on. But this is what you do. This is how an authoritarian operates. One of the first things they want to do is shut up the media. They want to nationalize what we get, what we learn through our own ears. They want to filter out and to a certain degree, that's always happened. To a certain degree, that's
Right.
always happened when it comes to the media. But again, as it's happening right now, this is straight out of an authoritarian playbook of what they're doing. And that we haven't even talked about what ICE is doing on the streets. But yeah, this is straight out of an authoritarian's playbook as how they're handling the media in terms of trying to shut them up and intimidate them on things that they don't want to be talked about. It's these are the things that we used to talk about other countries would do and how it wouldn't happen here. Well, it's happening. It's happening right here. What are your thoughts?
Um, Bobby, I think February is going to be a very interesting month for the country. But when we, like talked about how Don Lemon and the crew went in that church and basically reporting on what is happening. Now, I'm not going to list the amount of disruptions that have come to predominantly black churches, and you didn't see the feds get involved.
That's right.
Because at the end of the day, I know you use the word conservative and that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, I just think it's just simply it's uh, a white Christian nationalist movement, a thing that's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just simply what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I think, and I'm not going to go into your hot topic, about the raids and all of that, but I think February I think this regime, this Trump regime, really wants to make February put the black face to this entire debacle that's going on in Minnesota and in other places in the country. I think you want to put a black face on it because there were 4 journalists that were arrested. All 4 were black. I know Don Lemon stated that he told them that, hey, he's willing to turn himself in, but they did not want that. They gave the 34 convicted felon an opportunity to turn himself in without him getting arrested and put in the handcuffs. But they wanted those black faces arrested. They wanted all 4 of those journalists arrested. And so they've been doing everything they can to get black folks out in these streets. And I think when you combine already things that are happening in February, Black History Month, with what's happening of all the swing states, and you saying that they stole the election back in 2020, you pick Georgia, you come to Fulton County, very Black county, in this month, or leading in from January, leading into February, and you arresting these 4 Black journalists. It is, Bobby, I just think it's a scheme. I think the entire month of February, their goal is to put a black face on all of this. And I'm interested to see, honestly. I'm going to go as far as to say I'm not so mad that they're doing it, because I'm wanting to see how our so-called allies, our non-melanated allies, I want to see how they are going to react to what is obviously being done. And right here in Georgia, my understanding is that there's some kind of headquarters or something that is set up in South Fulton, the city of South Fulton, the blackest city, I believe, in the nation. I don't know if there's a immigrant problem in South Fulton. I'll be surprised if it is, but you're setting up there. And then the TPS, the temporary protection that the Haitians had, that was supposed to expire, today. But what happened, I think a federal judge stepped in and it didn't expire. But from what I understand is that there are all kinds of ICE agents in the state of Ohio, because supposedly there's a lot of Haitians who we know about Springfield when they was eating the dogs and the cats. That's Springfield, Ohio, right? That was Springfield, and Ohio. So, and I think a lot of Haitians, I believe, because of the hurricane, kind of went to, I think Ohio opened their doors. So recruited to rebuild a failing state, which is what they did with the city of Springfield. That thing was a ghost town, and those Haitians came and basically revitalized that city. And when they said that they're eating the cats and dogs, I don't know how much the long time or usual residents of Springfield spoke out and tried to protect those refugees, basically. But anyway, that remains to be seen. But what I'm saying is that they supposedly had a bunch of ICE agents on standby and ready to send these Haitians, into these holding camps until they can get them, back to Haiti or whatever. So I just think, Bobby, February, with your 2 topics right now, you ask me, what do I think? I think that February is going to be a very interesting month. I think that the Trump regime is they are so desperate to put a black face onto this. Because I think they are also very interested to see how non-melanated people are going to act as well when it's a black face instead of the 2 white faces so far that are the face in Minnesota of what's happening. God bless them. Those people are dead. They have no reason to be dead. But you rarely hear anything about that brother who's also been killed, during this time. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's funny you bring that up, because ICE is supposedly buying warehouses, to store, these people that they're rounding up, those that they're rounding up.
Well, I think they have the 13th largest military budget in the world.
Yeah. I mean,
if you want to call them a military, yeah.
Right. So. These are, and they, by the way, they're expanding their power. That was one of the things that they got now, is that they've got the power to engage with those that they even think are going to be, I don't want to say a troublemaker, but those that they think could basically cause a problem, right? They've expanded their powers out to do those sort of things. It's just going to make the situation even more dangerous. And if you remember, and by the way, one of the things I know we talked about last week that I brought up about the qualifications, I can confirm, right? And I would never reveal my source, but I can confirm that there are individuals that are in ICE that have criminal records,
Oh, absolutely.
that have outstanding warrants, that can't go to certain places because they have a warrant, right? Because of if they say, okay, we need you to go to Texas, or we need you to go to New Jersey, whatever, wherever they're sent. Some of them are like, I can't go there I can't leave because I have a warrant for my arrest on whatever the charges were. It goes back to what I was saying. Is like they're not those qualifications. They're not following that. This is an infiltration of people that have no business. Definitely behind a mask, interacting with the public the way they are. There's no reason whatsoever for them to be able to have that ability. And one thing I listened today to Sister Laree Daniels Favors on her show on Urban View. She has an excellent show, so just a quick plug on her. But she said something that flows back, and we're in this topic on this, is something you mentioned last week about immigration. She talked about,
with the E.
yeah, with an E. She talked about remigration, right? Or remigration, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Remigration.
So yeah, so she listed 3 things, and I'm going to repeat it. So again, this is Laree Daniel Favors who says this, and she is right on it. She says there are 3 things about remigration to occur. Number 1, close the border to all non-whites. Number 2, get rid of all non-whites here legally. And number 3 was get rid of all whites not in alignment with their ideology. And I thought that was so telling when she mentioned that. She's an excellent talk show host. She's very smart, but that was very, very impactful listening to her lay out those things. Earlier today, I heard her say those things on her show. So that just flows into what you were saying last week about immigration with an E.
Exactly.
And that was very, very telling. And you see the signs of what she said that are happening in real time.
And Bobby, and that's why I said earlier, white Christian nationalists.
Correct.
Because those are the 3 elements. Those are the 3 elements that these people want. White Christian nationalists. And so, but one other thing I want to bring up, Bobby, before you move into your hot topic, and that is, I'm wondering if these people, these ICE agents that they have hired over the last several months, and I'm wondering, are they making some kind of loophole for themselves? I'm talking about the government. I'm talking about the regime, the Trump regime. This guy's he's a he's a convicted criminal, and his mind is of a almost have Martin Lawrence in my head when Martin says, he got the criminal mind.
Yeah.
And the guy has got a criminal mind, and he thinks always like a criminal. And so I'm wondering, are these people actually federal employees? I don't know. There's just something funny. There's something. These are the kind of people who leave themselves loopholes. They are so used to doing white collar type crimes that they are very good at leaving some kind of loophole. But I think because everyone is just concentrating on the sheer just grossness of these guys, and and talking about them and what they can't do, and all of that kind of stuff, and like you said, criminal records and that kind of thing, is that under certain circumstances and under certain rules, the Supreme Court has given this president, this executive branch, a lot of power. And I'm just there's something just tells me that it's going to come out of something one day like, oh no, they were just like temporary folks that we needed them for. And I just don't think that there's enough, and even when I think about Hakeem Jeffries, and when I think about Chuck Schumer, and the things that these guys are concentrating on, like talking about these guys need more training, these are probably some of the worst people in our communities. And they need to be talking about that these guys need to be unmasked. We need to see who they are.
Yeah.
So when we come back, because it's going to come back, when it comes back, we can identify these people. These people are not wearing badges, name tags, or anything. I just think that there need to be more investigative reporting from our journalists, if we still have them out there, to say, hey, are these people really are they really federal employees? It's just something about that just doesn't sit right with me. But I'm not an investigative journalist. I'm not some federal employee guru or something like that. But I just know that the criminal mind just always have some kind of out. And this is just very, very strange. It is so strange. Donald Trump is not the smartest man in the world, but he's definitely
The word I use is devious.
Okay, devious. Diabolical.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely diabolical. And it's just something with it, Bobby. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I hope I don't have to come back and visit this 8 months down the road or whatever. But I do think, again, I just want to sum my piece up. I do think that February is going to be the month that this regime put, for lack of better words, a black face to this whole debacle, whether we stay at home or not. Don't fall for the okie doke.
Right.
So you're not going to pull us out in these streets, but I think that they are looking at a way, especially for this month of February, with your topic coming up next and your topic that you just talked about. I think those are just two examples of what they're going to do to make February, to put a black face on this whole debacle.
I get it. I definitely get it. And the rhetorical question I would have to end this is, let's say you got all the quote unquote criminal illegal immigrants out. Then what? Are we going to be a safer nation? Are we going to, crime is going to stop all of a sudden? The whole nature of how they're doing this, it's like, what is the mission? What is the mission? Nobody has an issue with criminal, illegal folks here leaving. Nobody. But we know that's not what you're doing. We know it's more than that. That's the whole thing.
Absolutely.
We know that's not what you're doing. So
the mission is a white Christian nation, Bobby.
It is.
That's the mission, brother. That's the mission. Burn it all down, or if it's not a white Christian nation, just burn it all down.
Yep.
So, all right, Bobby.
Okay.
Let's hit the last thing for today, and that is your super, super hot topic, brother. Take it away.
Okay, so as we know, the feds came in last week and raided the Georgia Elections Board in Fulton County and got a lot of data from the 2020 election. The thing about this, that amongst numerous things, is he's still litigating the 2020 election. He just can't accept the fact that you lost. You lost in the state of Georgia. And to target the largest county in the state with the largest amount of black voters is telling. But what's interesting is that you made it a point to go to Fulton County, but you didn't make it a point to go to Coffee County, where they were trying to affect the voting machines and the data breach that was there. So if you're gonna go to Fulton County under the lies that you've created that need to be investigated, why aren't you in Coffee County? Why are you there? So I went and pulled the results again. He lost Georgia by 11,779 votes, or 780, as he says. That's the one more vote he needed to win. The one more, right? So we know that from the recorded call with Brad Raffensperger, where he's trying to basically cheat. He's trying to basically find some kind of way to win Georgia. And the crazy thing about it is, even if you had won Georgia, you still lose. That's the other thing. You're not investigating the other states. You still lose. But, you just can't accept the fact you lost Georgia. So I went and just pulled some information. With Georgia, with in the state of Georgia, certain counties, 380,000 plus voters in Fulton County voted. 72.6% of the county voted for Joe Biden. Gwinnett County, approximately 242,000 voters, 58.4%. DeKalb County, 308,000 voters, 83%. Cobb County, 221,000 voters, almost 222, 56.3%. Richmond County, which is where Augusta is, 59,000 voters, 67.9%. Clayton County, 95,000 voters plus, 85% voted for Joe Biden. Chatham County, which is where Savannah is. These are some of the cities and areas that were blue, right? Chatham County, 78,000 voters, 58.7% voted there. Douglas County, 42, almost 43,000 voters, 62%. Henry County, 73,000 voters, 59.7%. But you chose Fulton County to do your full raid, to go and do your so-called research. So when you break down the census data that I pulled, of these 79% of Fulton County is of voting age, representing 847,000 plus residents over age 18. So we have 42.5% of Fulton County's population is black, 39% is white, 8.7% is Asian, 8% is Hispanic / Latino, 7.4% is other, that includes Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. 1.4% is American Indian or Native Alaskan. So these are some of the numbers that I just want to give some context about in the state and where he chose uh, to concentrate his thinking that something went wrong in only one county, right? The largest county, and we know the largest black segment in the state. This is where he chose to do his so-called raid of information. And it's very telling about, again, him trying to nationalize the elections, because all of a sudden he's doing this before midterms. He is keenly aware of what's facing him, a blue tsunami. He's keenly aware of what that could bring in terms of impeachment. And at some point, with all this stuff that he's getting away with, at some point, it's going to end. And he knows that. So the idea of fixing, quote unquote, fixing an election, and we've had numerous discussions about the past one, the 2024 election, thinking something happened. We don't know what it is just yet, but we know this administration is going to investigate. But he picks 2020 to go back and investigate. And I've always asked this question: why we ain't investigating 2016? How you got in there in the first place? You don't ever bring up 2016. You only want to talk about 2020. You don't want to talk about 2024, but you don't. Let's talk about 2016 then. Since we're going to go back, let's see what happened there. You know, maybe there was some voting irregularities going on then in 2016 where you should have never got in office. But you know what? We accepted. We accepted the fact that, man, I can't believe he won. Didn't like it, but we had to accept that, swallow hard. But then when he loses, now you want to go investigate. Now you don't want to concede the fact that you lost, at least publicly, because privately we've heard that he did concede. He knew he lost, right?
Yes.
And so now we get to 2024, an election is done, and I guess everything was cool. I guess we had no voting irregularities. I guess there was no instances of widespread voter fraud, as they love to pronounce, without any factual evidence to prove so. And again, in 2020, he lost over 60 plus adjudicated cases regarding any voting irregularities that could have affected the outcome of the election. 60. 0 for 60 plus. Okay. So we're beating this dead bush, as we all know. This is something that is a complete waste of taxpayer money. And I would personally love to see, when all of this is over, since he wants to sue the federal government for what he thought was unfair against him when he was running and when he was in office, I would love to see us recoup back any money that has been wasted. We know there's plenty regarding this sham of an investigation and what it's doing to that's our federal tax money. That's taxpayer money we're spending on this kind of nonsense. How much is being wasted just to satisfy his ego? So that investigation, it should be troublesome and worrisome to everyone. We don't know what they may do with that data. We don't know who they may, what information is gathered out of there, again, to intimidate voters, to target certain people. We know that this basically a slap at the likes of those like Fonnie Willis, maybe Stacey Abrams, anybody black in leadership to try to tarnish their name, to try to discredit them, absolutely, from them doing their jobs or whatever influence that they may have. It's all an attempt to do all of the above. So we should be vigilant regarding this. We shouldn't take this line down. And again, just like Amy mentioned, people, you have to speak up. You have to take action on your own. And nobody has said anything about violence. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is educate yourselves on how do you respond? How do you get things done? Okay. So we that is out there and it's been out there for the longest. It's something we've always tried to say here on this platform about getting involved, getting educated about the issues at play and how you can get things done, whether it be on the local level, the state level, or the national level. But locally is where things impact you the most. But we keep repeating the same narrative to people about getting things done. So I'll end it there and turn it over to you, Rodney, and get your thoughts.
The other part, Bob, that I think is pertinent, I've already talked about what they did in Fulton County as far as getting those voter records and coming there with the FBI jackets on and all of that.
Mhm.
And you talked about how it's also an intimidation tactic and all of those kinds of things. But we know that you're going to go and pull some records that are, now 6 years old. You're not going to do anything with those as far as the ballots in Fulton County have been counted actually officially, what, 4, 5, 6 times, something like that. I can't even remember, but in fact, I believe every time they were counted, he lost a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if my memory served me correctly, so they're not doing anything with those. I actually think that was also, I've already talked about what they're going to do for February of this year. They want to put a black face on this whole debacle that Trump is doing. But I also think that was somewhat of a dry run. Somewhat of a dry run of they're trying to see. And here is where I think where the Democratic parties throughout the country, throughout the state needs to be concentrating on, instead of, giving people rides and stuff. I'm not saying stop doing any of that stuff, giving people rides to polls and that kind of thing. But I think that it's also kind of a test run to kind of see what are the attorneys general of these states, how they're going to react. I think he wanted to start with Fulton County, Atlanta, because of the month of February or whatever. And then I think for all of those other swing states, especially the ones that have predominantly or a large number of African Americans or other people of color, to see how the attorneys general of those states are going to act, how the governors are going to act. Well, if you look at what I saw when those FBI agents came through Fulton County, I didn't hear any. Now you say, well, we have a Republican attorney general and all this stuff. It's a Republican state of Georgia. But again, he's trying to see what are these governors, are these attorneys general, are they going to do their job, or are they going to just let me send agents into their state and just basically take stuff? And I think that's going to happen in other red states, in Texas. I think it's going to happen in Houston. I think it's going to happen in
Detroit,
in
Michigan.
Arizona and some of the other states that are so-called red states. And so I think that had a big. I think that it was a show, but I also think that it was information gathering. This regime has shown time and time again that they're going to tell you what they're going to do next. Donald Trump is out here talking about, federalizing the voter, voting and all this stuff, making it a national thing, knowing doggone well that is against the Constitution. But it's like, you know what? Let's just put it out there. Let's see how people are going to, act. I saw where the first question that the media asked Donald Trump is, look, I hate it for the lady, the news lady, Guthrie, I think is her name. Her mother is missing or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And that's sad. And I hope that they find this lady and But if all of this stuff is going on, this is the first question that you're going to ask Donald Trump as a journalist. You're supposed to be a journalist. And this is what you asking this guy. This guy has shown time and time again that he has no empathy for anybody. Why? What's the point? Why are you not asking this guy about how they should be constantly asking this guy, how in the world did you and your family earn or get $1 billion before the end of your first year in office? That is where, look, I like anyone else, the Epstein files, look, it's so obvious that these guys that so many of these rich men did things to these underage girls that should not have been doing or whatever. Bobby, I just can't understand why investigative actual journalists are not beating the door in on how this guy got so much money in so little bit of time, and his family and everything else. That's where the true crime lies. And he's just throwing them off. He knows there's nothing going to come out of the Epstein stuff. This guy, he know that his constituency, he know that the Republicans don't care nothing about what is happening to all of these predominantly, I'm sure, young white girls or whatever. There has been many instances where we're surprised, like, oh, they didn't do anything. That was a white lady or that was a young white girl. They don't care. And so I hate it for the lady's mother or whatever, but this is what you're asking this guy. It's a joke. It's a straight joke. And but hey, it is what it is. But also the last thing I'll say is that Texas House race. You know, I can't remember the exact numbers. I don't know if you know when that Trump, I want to say it was something like 19 percentage points or something that he won.
Oh, that he won by,
that he won by. And that thing totally flipped to where it's 9 or 19 or something like that a Democrat won in Texas. So they know what is coming. They know that even white Texans are sick of you. And so they are dead set on you know, just stealing this election in November. And so I am very proud, and I want to say this even on your platform as well as I said it on my platform last week, is that I am very proud of Black folks, you know, just kind of, you know, holding fast because they want us out in those streets. I don't care what nobody say. They want us out there in those streets. But listen, I just say, hey, you're going to see us out in those streets, Donald Trump. You know where you're going to see us? In November. That's when we're going to be out in the streets. We're not going to be easily scared or afraid about anything. And you're going to see us in those streets in a line that maybe wrap around buildings. But that's in November. I expect I want to see our people out there in November. But I think, Bobby, that this is an opportune time for the Democratic Party to start thinking of ways to protect the voters.
Yes.
To protect the voters, giving them rides, great. Keep doing that. Bring them water. I know in the state of Georgia, you can't give out water. Sell it for a freaking penny to the folks or whatever. Then give the penny to the next person, however you want to do it. But at the end of the day, what I'm saying is this: Democrats, figure out a way to make especially Black and brown folks comfortable in letting them know, come out to vote. Come out to vote. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. We have this in place, that in place, this in place, and that in place. Talk to the state's attorneys general. Talk to the local sheriffs. Talk to the police chiefs and let them know. Let me tell you something. You better make sure that you have a presence that fake ICE agents. These people don't even have police authority over citizens. Right. Look, that's what the Democratic Party need to be doing right now. They need to be making ICE irrelevant. And this 2-week pause or whatever on not, you know, funding DHS and all of this. No. Democrats, I'm telling you, this is where you lose. This is where you lose. I'm telling you, Bobby, this is an opportunity for the Democrats over the next 8 months to really extinguish ICE. If they extinguish ICE, I promise you, folks are going to come out in Jubilee style to vote, and they're going to vote for the Democrats. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And, it's voter education, it's people listening to the issues, as you just laid them out as to what you need to be doing, come time to vote, these kind of things. But yes, you're absolutely right. The Democrats need to make a priority of eliminating these issues with ICE. You can't be on there signing off on more funding. You have to take a stand against what's happening here because they're obviously being branded as a Gestapo. And we again, as I laid out, I'm telling you, those qualifications that they say to be a part of ICE, they're not following it. They're not following it. It's rogue, and they know it. And you're protecting people. We still don't know, unless I've missed something. We still don't know where the person is that shot the young lady. I'm sorry, her name escapes me at the moment. Up in Minnesota.
Yes,
Um,
good.
yeah, Miss Good.
Yeah, Renee
So
Good,
we,
I think. Yeah.
yeah, we still don't know who that person was and where he currently is. We still don't know. So it's things like that, that's stick in the craw of voters that bother people, that cause them to come out and protest, because people are angry. They're definitely angry about all this that's happened here. And with the stuff happening in Fulton County, they're going to come back with some fabricated nonsense. We know that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to find some justification as to why they had to, and these quote unquote voting irregularities, it's going to be something. Again, you only targeted Fulton County. You only targeted Fulton County. You didn't target Coffee. You didn't target none of those other counties that I brought up where you absolutely lost, right? And the margin wasn't close on those counties that I mentioned earlier. You lost. So you're gonna try to create a new narrative as to somehow, well, maybe you didn't. You're gonna see people fall for it. Some people are gonna fall for it. They're gonna fall for the banana in the tailpipe. You're gonna see it. So there's gonna be a sucker play out there because they know a sucker's born every minute. And all you have to do is present just a shred of doubt from what was told, and they'll believe it 100%. They've been playing these people. MAGA's been playing these people from 2016, from 2015, 2016, playing with people's intelligence. You've had some that have finally opened their eyes, but the rest of them have been like zombies. You don't have any type of separate thinking. And even your Marjorie Taylor Greens now, when she says things now about what she sees about MAGA, it's just like, you just now waking up to see all that, but you were one of the ringleaders behind it, and you still say you support them. So it's like what you say rings hollow too. Even when you're trying to quote unquote issue these alarms, as she's trying to do, or try to somehow cleanse herself from it, you part of the problem, and you still say you support him. So you didn't separate yourself. You just ran from the drum. That's what you did. That's all you did. So but I'll end it on that. It's been crazy. Don't know where all of this is headed. Obviously, every day, every week is something different. It's exhaustive, but it's so chaotic. It's going to end, and it's not going to end pretty. I'm not talking about violence. I'm just saying in general that it's this. None of this stuff is going to stand. It's not withstanding all this, putting your name on the Kennedy Center and trying to put yourself on a coin. This stuff is not going to last. It's not. Hitler had the same ideas, and so it's not gonna end the way they think it's gonna end. It's not gonna be what they think it's gonna be when it's all said and done. But that's and we see the moves as we mentioned before. That's why you're trying to go ahead and cheat now at midterms. This is what you're trying to do. Cause this chaos and again distract us from the Epstein files because we know your name is prominently mentioned in it. There's several things that's being reported. And I don't know if you know, well, I'll end on this. Netflix is supposedly, I think they're gonna have some type of documentary on the survivors from Epstein's Island and them talking about
Mm.
what they know, what they witnessed, what they saw, what they dealt with. So that's going to be interesting to see how that happens, or if they take some type of measure to prevent Netflix from ever getting it put out. We'll see.
Well, if they have it, it's going to break the internet. That's for sure.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
but yeah, Bobby. So yeah, great. Great topics, man. Great episode. And I just want to, again, just reiterate, man, that for Democrats, really, I just can't say it enough. You have about 7 good months, to show the people that your primary goal is to protect the voters. And you can start with your local law enforcement agencies and your police, your sheriff, your DA. When these people come to your cities and counties, do whatever you can do to make an example out of them, because right now what it looks like is that, like you said, Bobby, a Gestapo, it looks like they just have power to do whatever they want to do. Now, I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes that the mainstream media, which is nothing but propaganda, will not show. That they want it to appear as if these agents just have the right to do whatever they want. They're not showing folks behind the scenes who are really doing the work, who are really giving these guys hell. They might show a little bit of it here and there, but what I'm saying is we cannot have our national elected, our federal officials, of the Democratic Party, Hakeem Jeffries and all those guys, and Chuck Schumer and all of them, talking about these guys having body cams on them. Man, who cares? The police, they don't care anything about body cam. Body cams haven't stopped all kinds of people that look like me and you, Bobby, from laying in the street, dying and dead for hours. It has not stopped anything. But what you can do, Democrats, is you can say, take off those freaking masks. We want to know who you are. Even if that lets the constituency know that the Democrats, if they can't get them now because of Trump and the Supreme Court and doing what they're doing, but what that lets the constituency know is that you're setting them up for failure. You're going to get them. It might be 2 or 3 years from now, but you're going to get them. And you're doing things that your district attorneys, your sheriffs, and your police chiefs, and there's policy that you got to show your face. You got to show your face. Do stuff like that. It ain't about training. These guys are criminals. It's not about training. It's not about cams, body cams. It's not about any of that. Stop it. You're losing. So, Bobby, I just had to say that one more time. And the Local Lookout is the best platform that we have on the Black Man's Roundtable to say it on. And so, but yes, listen up, Democrats, listen up, I'm telling you. So, but anyway, Bobby, look, man, great episode, great topics, very passionate. We went a little bit longer than what we normally go, but I'm sure that the followers of your Local Lookout is going to appreciate what Amy brought to the table, what we've tried to bring to the table with these 2 topics, and something and things to look forward to. So, but anyway, Bobby, if you're done, man, you can definitely close it out, brother.
Hey, listen, again, thank you for another great episode. Catch the next episode of your Local Lookout. It will be aired on Thursday, first week of every month. I'm enjoying every episode we have going. We're going to try to remain as informative as we can. We ask you to stay with us, stick with us, listen up to the episodes, and try to learn something from it. So we're just trying to be as informative as we can. So in the meanwhile, take care of yourself between now and then. Stay vigilant, stay focused, and we will see you in them streets.
Peace, Bobby.
Peace, brother. Have a good one.
You too, brother. Hey, family. If you like what you saw, visit our website at blackmansroundtable.com for more information or to check out more content. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace.
Woke up to the sound of the struggle, echoes loud in the street. Generations of pain in the rhythm, blood and tears in the beat. From the corners to the courtrooms, we decipher the code. Every word that we speak is a chapter, every step is a road. They try to silence the story, rewrite the pages in gold. But the truth don't need no filter, the truth don't need no hope.
This is the anthem, the voice of the unheard. Standing tall in the fire, speaking life with each word. From the roots to the branches, we rise through the pain. Black man's round table, we're breaking the chain.
Microphone in my hand like a weapon, wisdom passed down through the ages. Every topic we tackle, every fight on these stages. They say we're too loud when we whisper, too proud when we kneel. But the power in our voices is the power that's real.
This is the anthem, the voice of the unheard. Standing tall in the fire, speaking life with each word. From the roots to the branches, we rise to the pain. Black man's round table, we're breaking the chain. This is the anthem, the voice of the unheard. Standing tall in the fire, speaking life with each word. From the roots to the branches, we rise through the pain. Black man's round table, we're breaking the chains.
Unapologetically black. We'll see you in them suites and them streets where we're flipping tables like Jesus.
We're breaking